The postcard and its messages give us an intimate account of the history of transport in the 20th century and an inventory of the ways we get about the place. Because flying was a sport to start with, nobody took it very seriously, except postcard manufacturers. In fact, a lot of the records of what early flyers looked like and what their machines looked like exist on the postcard alone.
This gives you an idea of a machine in the air. This is one of the best postcards at present. Very clear, I think, for one travelling.
Dear son and daughter, I trust you are quite well. I might say we had the pleasure of seeing this flying man. He has broken the world record, 3,580 feet up. Just imagine.
Graham White was one of the pin-up pioneers of flying. He had a kind of flying circus, and it was he that flew the first letters, the first aerial post, as it was called.
London, 1911. Dear Hannah, I'm sending this to commemorate a great event, the first aerial post. As you see this, carried high through the air, may it serve to lift your thoughts far above the heaven to him who has allowed man to solve this problem of flight.
It wasn't much of an airmail because it only went from London to Windsor and Windsor to London, which you could do on a bicycle just as quickly. The car started out as the ultimate luxury toy, associated with wealth and glamour. It was Henry Ford who changed all that with his Model T.
Sorry it was wet last Sunday.
Soon they were a common sight on postcards as in life.
Arrived here quite safely last night about 7:30. We came home down Sunrising Hill where the accident was, and I saw the very spot. We managed to arrive at the bottom in safety.
In the days when few people owned a car, the char-a-banc ride was the nearest you got. At the beginning of your trip, your photograph was taken in the char-a-banc, and by the time you got back to the depot, there it was, ready as a postcard.
We're spending a day in the Black Forest, and we just stopped here to get a mouthful of food. A whole day's outing in a very comfy char-a-banc has cost us about 206 per person. We're moving on to Frankfurt on Friday, where we shall
This is us, starting for Clovelly yesterday morning. I wonder if you know anybody in the motor coach. We had a lovely day, and both think Clovelly the most wonderful place we have ever seen. I have sent a tin of cream to the cottage this morning for you, Dad and Mother.
I wonder which one of those couples they are. But if you wanted to travel abroad in the early years of the century, the only way to go was by ship.
Dear Guy, have a ripping cabin on board all to myself, fitted up with cupboard, chest of drawers, washing basin, couch and bunk. The wireless set
Just a line to say we've arrived safe so far. It's been very rough and foggy. We went 120 miles out south on account of the fog and icebergs. I can see two in the distance. Tony, Agnes and I
Arrived
all
safe
sit
yesterday at 12 noon. A terribly rough passage. Lost 2 sailors in a storm and could not possibly save them.
1914. On learning that England was at war with Germany, the captain of our German boat carried us to the Dutch Indies instead of to West Australia. After waiting at Java for 10 days, we managed to secure a passage on this boat, which is travelling via Brisbane and Sydney to Melbourne.
Things moved quickly, and it was only 20 years after Blériot's first flight across the Channel that there was a regular passenger service from London to Paris. It took about 4 hours.
The plane makes my writing worse than usual. Great trip. Halfway to Paris, eating a bit of lunch.
Before the Second World War, flying was only for the very rich. But bit by bit, it became a common way of travelling, though people on their first flight still found it an amazing novelty.
Dear Jenny, we are flying over the Alps at present, having already flown over France. Even in a pressurised aircraft, we are feeling breathless.
I'm writing this in the air, flying over the rugged, rocky coast of Nova Scotia in clear, bright sunshine.
We're completely sold on this form of travel. It's super. Just flying over the Laura Sea, Istanbul in half an hour.
Although ships were a constant, being on board ship was always special. There were always new things to do and see, things that you couldn't do and see at home, things that you couldn't buy.
You would love this life. Plenty of everything, and a shop where nothing needs coupons.
X marks our porthole, which they have failed to print on this card. Ship has been very rocky on several occasions, but has not stopped us from entering many of the games that are going on. Maud got third in the women's section of the fancy dress parade.
Very calm all the way, and much warmer. Monday, left off my winter suit, and now in lightweight one. Being very lazy and reading a lot.
Could there be anyone more precious to travel with? We're both in seventh heaven, sailing on a sea of glass.
But there were always also the reluctant travellers, people with a sense of exile about their journey.
Dear Winnie, voici a postcard of the wretched little ship which is carrying me, much against my will, to Australia with my family. I'm very sorry that I had not time to call and see you before we left England. I hope you are still happy in your work and working your way to the top of the ladder. You are very lucky. I wish I was still in Surrey Street.
Dearest Carol, what a pleasant surprise you coming to see us off. Thank you so much, dear. I left England with a heavy heart. It may be in a dreadful mess now, but it's still hard to leave it. Do take care of yourself and try not to worry as much as you do.
The form of transport that's dominated the second half of the 20th century has been the car. Postcards have reflected our love-hate relationship with it.
Thinking of changing your 1303 Beetle? I think you will after you've driven the new VW Polo. Call Moss Motors, Watford 27371.
Bought a car Thursday last. Dealer promised delivery Saturday, so took all forward to London and travelled back same day on train. Then dealer promises delivery Monday, then Tuesday, then Wednesday. Today is Thursday, still no car. Haven't done any work since last Friday. Phoned boss today, said he would take time wasted from my holiday. So I'm making the best of it, up here.
Whether by land, sea or air, a good journey doesn't take much to describe, but one can really linger over an account of an awful one.
We went surfing today, and it was terrific. Car is still chugging along, although on the way down we had a flat tyre, ran out of petrol and had to have a tow. And then the front seat snapped in half. Oh well, that's life.
The weather could not be worse. All the roads are flooded. We went by Glasgow yesterday, and one of the streets was under 3 feet of water.
Journey so far has been frightful. Train did not stop at Prestwood, had hideously complicated trip to Reigate via Stockwell, landed in Alderney in a freezing fog, boat broke down crossing to Guernsey, arrived 1.5 hours late, soaking and starved to death.
As the century wore on, modes of transport multiplied, but the greatest of all travel adventures still waits for the ordinary individual.
Dear Jane, we are on vacation in Florida and have seen the rocket that will take the man to the moon.